Well, you said it. We're going to segue over to Queen's Court. And for those of you guys who do not know what Queen's Court is, it's an opportunity for me to come here to coach Matt. And usually we'll have another guest coach every once in a while. I'm surprised Coach Mark is not here today on a down Tuesday. We'll probably get him tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But in any case, Mark usually is here on a down day. So I'm surprised he's not here today.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. Usually he pops in, and I was like, okay, Mark may show, may not. He loves coming in on these big red candle downward moves of price because, Coach Mark's philosophy is, as we've been battling this 200 day, and he's been very open about it. He's concerned. He's concerned. I'm a little surprised he didn't show up to be like, hey, I told you so a little bit.
Maybe we'll get a surprise appearance tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, Queen's Court. I come in here and I'll bring Coach Matt a question. It could be a trade question, obviously. It could be just a thought, an idea, an area of the market that I'm looking at, whatever the thought is, and we'll just have a conversation about it. And today is no different. Last week we talked about healthcare, and healthcare did pretty well last week, and I'm looking at a different area of the market this week. We were on that doji, on that 9 moving day average before we had the Powell. What are you calling it? The Powell.
The fireside chat.
Fireside chat. So the fireside chat certainly helped our healthcare trade from last week, and now we're kind of like right back to where we started. We're back again on that 9 EMA there, but I'm looking at a different sector here, and in this sector, I'm going to actually go deeper and look at the at XLI, the industrials. But I want to go and take a look at not the overall sector here. I want to break it down and narrow it down to the airlines specifically. So I know we had Delta and I believe United on the scouting reports. And I want you to just kind of go ahead and just kind of give me a breakdown on what you're seeing there in the airlines, because as you always allude to, I'm either always going away or doing something. So Mama spent some money on some tickets here this year. Well, Mama needs to make some money back.
We made you some money last week to pay some healthcare bills. Let's go make some money this week on some airline tickets. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
When you're looking at industrial in general, the weekly chart's overextended, digesting that. The daily chart doesn't really have a pattern as of yet. Just a little bit of chop there. Needs a little bit of time to clarify the industrial space, just in general. When you're looking at this from an industry perspective, and this is the game we're going to play next year, guys. This game right here is the entire market next year. It is not a year of indexing. That's only if you want a flat line next year. It's not a year of indexing. It is a year of stock selection, industries, and whereas typically in markets it goes index, sector, industry, stock. Next year could be stock, industry, sector, marketplace. Because the fundamentals will play a bigger role next year, in a year where we expect a zero growth environment from an earnings perspective, in a year where we're going to achieve the terminal rate of whatever it is, right? I still think we're around that 5%, but others in the market have coming out over the last 2 days saying 5.25, 5.5. But regardless of what it is, we're going to find the terminal rate next year in the marketplace, and more than likely we're talking about a shallow recession, and if it can contract into a bigger recession next year. So these conversations next year from a market perspective it's difficult to see that big upward amazing market environment without the central bank, right? It's not fighting the central bank, it's just without the central bank. And so next year we're going to be talking a lot about individual components. It's a stock pickers. It's going to be a stock pickers year. I've said this about the Tackle 25. I even said it yesterday in our Tackle Trading weekly meeting. I've done the Tackle 25 for 8 consecutive. This will be my 8th year now. And the Tackle 25, I don't feel I've never, and I just started breaking ground on it 2 days ago, I don't feel I've ever put more on the individual stock fundamentals. Let me put it like this. I don't think I've discounted broad market analysis as much as I have this year, whereas I've been focusing much, 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 much more on industries and individual components.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's the conversation next year. Because in a zero growth environment, that doesn't mean all companies have zero growth. That means some companies have 20, 30% growth. And then you have, discretionary communications, technology stocks, certain cyclical stocks that have negative growth. And so it's our job to find those good ones, right? And so from an industrial perspective, from a sector perspective, you certainly feel like, it's achieved a little bit of what it set out to do on that weekly chart here. You're looking at industrials. It's had a really good run over the course of the last couple months. You see it just pound the table up from 82 all the way up to 100. And now you're looking at industrials, a little bit of elevated price action. You see the volatility start to ensue up here, which would bring you into some degree of short-term consolidation, and a downward movement in price here down to like 97.5 on the weekly chart. That would look really, really good, actually. And so, and that would clean up a little bit of the chop that we're seeing over the last week and a half or so on the industrial space. And you certainly are seeing, and this is a telltale for me in reversal analysis, you certainly are seeing an increasing volatility at the top of charts here. And that is never a good thing for me, technically. I do not want to see increasing volatility at the top of charts. I just think that's a battle being waged, and you don't want to see a battle being waged in trend analysis. You want to see consistency. You want to see consistency in patterns. And so you certainly are looking at this from a sector perspective, saying, all right, you've achieved what you set out to do. Let's see what you do next, right? Let's and that's waiting on that next pattern. And that next pattern, once you give up the momentum, once you give up the pivot, that next pattern is not let's get a high base and let's go. That next pattern is not let's get a bullish retracement and go. It's not that. That next pattern is a continuation pattern that happens typically at the end of trends. And continuation patterns can take on, extended high bases, certainly, but more than likely it's an ascending triangle, cup and handle, symmetrical triangle. And all of those continuation patterns take not days, they take weeks, quite frankly, to really establish the parameters to get that type of momentum. And so you're looking at this space saying it's been a good ride in the short term. That short-term trend is showing a little bit of damage, but is every industry doing the exact same thing? And so you like industrials in the sense that it's been a leader to the market, and it most likely will continue to be. But in the short term, it needs to take a bath. It needs to clean up and get a little bit more consistent from a price perspective. When you come into the actual individual components here, and let me pull up FinViz very quickly, and let's just take a look at kind of the relative performance of different industries within industrials over the last month. Kind of in the last month, we'll show you short-term trends, right? Last 30 days of data, if it's up 10%, that's typically because you're in a short-term uptrend. And let's just take a look at airlines here relative to everything else, right? And so let me get my Epic pen so I can illustrate.
I love it when the Epic pen comes
out. Got to bring the Epic pen in. Got to give the people what they want, and maybe the people's just me on the Epic pen, but I love the
you
Epic.
And me.
You and me, we're not giving it up. We are not giving it up. And when you look at airlines right here, and I'll get a different number then. Okay. When you look at airlines in the last month, up 5%, just kind of in the middle of the price appreciation that we've seen over the last month in industrials. You scroll up a little bit to the last week, and what do you see? In the last week, airlines up 2.39%. You're showing leadership there, whereas the rest of the sector is giving it up a little bit. Airlines are providing a little bit of needed leadership. And just over the last 2 days, remember, we've seen a little bit of a bloodbath in the market over the last 2 days. And over the last 2 days, airlines have really kind of just held their level. I mean, today airlines down just a hair, down a little bit more today as the market is coming down a little bit. But relative performance in the last month, you're right there in the middle of the industrial conversation, right? In the last week, you're at the top end of that. You are the top end of the last week performance in industrials is that 2.5% coming into airlines. And then today, even on a day where you're like, oh man, the airlines aren't doing nothing. Look at Delta. Delta's, down a point and a half here today. United UAL down, not even down, up about 0.11% today. You're seeing relative outperformance even today. And so last month equal, last week, last day, relatively outperform. You're seeing money come a little bit into this space. Now, today, you also had some news out of Boeing, obviously not an airline, but an industrial giant. The news out of Boeing is not bad or good. It's just nostalgic. They are set to deliver their last 747. And so I'm sure the people of Boeing are having a moment over this one because it's been 70 years that they've been, not 70, 50 years, 52 years, I think, 1970. They've been designing that 747 out of that production plant north of Seattle for the last 52 years. They've delivered, I think, over 1,500 747s. And so they're having a little bit of moment. I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's Boeing hasn't had many good stories. Not many I've had any inkling to discuss. But that's a little bit of a nostalgic moment for Boeing, though. So give them some credit there. But that 747 provided it connected the countries together to a certain extent. It was just an amazing plane. So I just want to bring it up. But coming back to the airlines here, you are seeing relative outperformance. There's no doubt about that. So the question I have is which one, right? Which one do we want to look at? Jets here, the ETF, which takes into account all of the airlines out there, it looks pretty decent, actually. You got a little bit of a cup and handle here. You see the cup, you see a little bit of a handle join, really clean above 19 here on Jets. So keep an eye on 19 on Jets. Let's do a weekly chart too, because I think what you're going to see on the weekly chart is see that 19 handle stands out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It just stands out, and you enter into a little bit of a pocket. So the cup and handle on the daily chart over the last 3-4 weeks makes some sense in the weekly chart because now you're just high basing against that resistance level. So if you want to get outside the stock picker arena and just kind of focus on the ETF here, Jets does look good above 19 if we get that breakout. And the 2 wicks over the last 4 weeks confirm that 19 handle as well. So you could have one of those situations on a breakout where you say, yeah, I don't care what the market does. If you break out, you break out. We're above 19 here. So you got to like the ETF a little bit here. But if you're looking outside the ETF, I do think Delta here, same type of conversation. Delta was on our scatter report over the weekend. Still like Delta here. Same type of conversation on Delta that we're having on Jets. Very similar double bottom, fighting back up to resistance on weekly charts, looking at a little bit of a consolidation against a 50-period moving average on Delta. Yesterday's price action on Delta was fascinating in the sense that you had the breakout. It was looking fantastic. Came right back down with the marketplace. Delta had some positive news yesterday. They have an agreement with the pilots union to not have a strike. That's positive news. Delta breaks out on that positive news, comes right back down on the market. So Delta's a little bit of a front runner there, perhaps, if we get a close. And there was a question yesterday in the halftime report on Delta, and I basically said this: you close above 36, the fake out doesn't matter. And so I still think you're looking at that ultimately as a flag and looking for a confirmation above 36. But that wick certainly is not going to be as clean as your eyes will look at when you're looking at Jets here. Jets looks a lot cleaner. Jets doesn't have the volatility that Delta has, although I still like Delta. Yeah, you also mentioned United Airlines here, very similar type pattern, fighting up on the weekly charts, a little bit of an ascending triangle type pattern, very similar to the pattern we're seeing on Jets and Delta, obviously. And you're breaking out of 45 here with perhaps some confirmation above 45.50 with a little bit of open air up until about 50. I honestly, I don't think there's a bad pick here out of the litter here, Am. If I had to say, for most people, I would say Jets makes a lot of sense. It's an ETF. You don't have to worry about the individual stock news blowing up a pattern like you did on Delta. If you're looking at an individual component, uh, United above, let me get the number. We want to be specific on those numbers. United above 45.50 with confirmation, or Delta above 36 with confirmation makes some sense. What do you think? Jets, Delta, or United here?
Ah, man, you had me at that weekly on Jets. I mean, it's just so pretty.
It's good, and it's a great way to diversify against airlines. So I no qualms about that. It'll smooth out the volatility. Obviously, in an ETF, you're not going to have the home run in an ETF the same way you could on an individual component,
Uh-huh.
right? Because individual components can fly. ETFs are a little bit diversified. And so it kind of caps that. But in this environment, is that necessarily a negative thing?
Not necessarily. And I mean,
Right. Smooth out the volatility. We're seeing increasing volatility, smooth out the volatility. So I personally like Delta above 36, but we debated United versus Delta, and it was close. They're both very, very close. Jets, we do put ETFs on our scatter reports, but typically we like stocks on there for the most part. Jets make some sense here. Delta, United, they all make some sense here on any confirmed breakout. So you're leaning Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I fly Delta a lot, but that weekly on Jets just looks really, really pretty. It's hard to turn that down, especially if you get that breakout above that 50. I mean, it's just so neat.
Well, it's clean. It's clean, right? And that's what you don't get on Delta because of the wick on Mondays. It's not clean. I'm discounting that week because of the context of the market.
Yeah.
But algorithms don't discount nothing. Right? Just because I do doesn't mean Goldman Sachs algorithm is. And so no, you're cleaner here as of today. You are cleaner here today going into that 19 break on Jets versus the 36 break on Delta. But again, it's kind of one works, they both work type scenario. It's just which one would you have to write the volatility a little bit more? That's probably Delta. And so I don't have any problem with the pick on Jets here. Jets makes some sense.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know what? I've got probably 6 or 7 hours before we have the Dynasty Investors Lab. I might change my mind, but for now, Misty was asking in the chat whether we're going to talk about Jets and Dynasty tonight, and of course we will. But we might also look at the other two as well too, and just kind of analyze those and see which one we end up going with. But for now, I definitely like JETS Jets.
Calm down on that.
Team, not the team.
Calm down.
Listen, I know Miami's all up there.
Calm down.
Get it.
Listen. You're talking to a Miami Dolphin lover over here.
Why do you think I did the whole JETS Jets?
I know exactly why you did it. I know exactly why, and I'm offended. Miami the Jets. Listen, people like I get asked a lot regarding who's the number one team I don't like in the NFL, because there's always these rivalries, and everybody's like, oh, New England's been owning you guys forever, and I'm like, yeah, because they own us, I don't care. It's the Jets. I can't stand the Jets. The Jets have daggered us too many times. So a lot of rich history with the Miami and the Jets. So I appreciate the JETS Jets call. I do. Let's all do it together. JETS Jets. By the way, we're talking about the ETF.
The ETF. Nothing to do with the team or their quarterback that got benched.
Nothing to do with the team that benched a quarterback from BYU. Nothing to do with that.
Nothing at all. Well, this